We've got some pretty big announcements from both COMC and Fanatics this week, and also some interesting hobby beef that I thought was honestly freaking hilarious. I'm going to share my thoughts on that. So let's just jump straight into this week's weekly news topics. Now, it's fairly interesting because this one you would have basically heard lots of people talk about already, and that is Fanatics announcing the fact that they're going to implement or start using their own live streaming and marketplace platform. So it's going to be somewhere where you can go to break and sell your cards, but then also allow them to sell cards directly to customers through trading cards and be it collectibles. Now, this is pretty, groundbreaking because it basically highlights their intention to sort of go after the likes of eBay, go after the likes of Whatnot, which is the biggest player in that, live buying and selling space at the moment. Go after a few of these other platforms as well. And it's a really exciting thing from the perspective that, Fanatics have once again shown that they mean business, right? If you sort of took them for granted based on what they were doing with regards to Topps, the potential acquisition of Panini, you weren't taking them seriously, now you sort of need to wake up and start taking them very, very seriously, because the amount of money they're looking at investing, as you can see in this CNBC article, is quite substantial. And a lot of people, have asked questions around Fanatics and what it means for the hobby long term. Can they handle the pressure of being the sole producer? Can they, handle the IPs of Topps, as an example? Can they, make the hobby better? And a lot of people have sort of seen what they've done with Topps, over the last year or so, or since they took over. I can't recall when that did occur. And they've had, a lot of questions. They're not very happy with the direction that Topps have taken recently. They're not very happy with, the mistakes they've made and the QC issues and all that sort of stuff, not putting rookies in certain products, so on and so forth, that goes on. But I think this intention from Michael Rubin and Fanatics as a whole is a pretty big one. And, Whatnot is probably not going to be around for much longer. I think a lot of people in the hobby have been saying that for quite some time, just because, they don't have a huge footprint. Yes, everybody uses their platform, but by that I mean, all it was going to take was somebody like an Instagram or, an eBay to try and do something similar, right? Or some other social media platform, or someone like Fanatics now who have, the finances and the connections now within the hobby where they can streamline the whole process. Some of you might say, okay, well, what does this mean for the hobby long term? Like, what does, Fanatics coming in and having this platform mean? I think a lot of people have talked about, how breakers are going to be signed up to basically only break on their platform. But, Fanatics would more than likely go one step further on this. And if you want to be a breaker, you're going to have to, obviously buy through them directly, but you can only break on their platform, right? So they might say, okay, well, if you want to get, the top tier Topps Chrome as an example, or some flagship product that Topps produces, if you want to get that, or the equivalent of an NBA product, if they do buy the Panini license as an example, if you want to get access to Flawless, they don't own Panini, but I'm just using that as an example. If you want to bust Flawless, you have to break on our platform. And if we find out that you're breaking anywhere else, or you're putting your videos on YouTube as an example, we're going to delist you. We're no longer going to sell that product to you directly. And, whether or not they do that is another question, but that is certainly a pretty real possibility, right? Because it now gives them the complete integration process. They essentially own top to bottom. They're going to start putting a stranglehold on the media and the interaction with breaking and selling and buying, trading cards. So they're essentially an end-to-end offering to customers. They can make money essentially across that entire value chain in ways that, the likes of Panini couldn't in the past. They can put a proper stranglehold. It is a pretty scary monopoly, in my opinion, because monopolies typically, don't mean good things for consumers in the long run. Let's see what Fanatics, are going to do about it. But I just thought I'd share those thoughts on that with you just now. Now, the next thing I want to touch on is this pretty interesting news from COMC. And I've seen a few interesting opinions on this, within people commenting on this, I should say. And that is, you can basically grade directly through COMC via CGC and CSG, or to those two graders via COMC, I should say. Now, I don't think they have partnerships with PSA. I'm pretty sure they offer a very similar service for BGS, and they have for quite some time, if I recall. But this is a pretty big win for CGC and CSG, because this is another way for COMC to sort of, they've already got a big consumer base. A lot of people still use them. They love their functionality of being able to buy entire collections on there and basically whack them back up and make a little bit of a margin on that. So they've got a really good supporter base. I don't think COMC is going anywhere long term. So the integration of things like this is a really good win for them to sort of stay relevant, but also be a bit of a disruptor to an extent. Yes, we've seen eBay do similar things and a few other platforms, but again, this is a way for them to stay relevant. They're not going anywhere long term. But again, it comes back to the commentary we've had on card graders in general, right, and what it means for the likes of SGC. I've consistently talked about how SGC has been such a really good thing for the hobby, and I'm lost for words at the moment. They've done really, really good in the sense that they've made some ground up and they've managed to stay consistent with regards to their grading. But the question has been, despite PSA and BGS completely dropping the ball over the last 2 years, SGC did not do enough to sort of take that or leapfrog them as much as they should have. They did it to BGS, but they didn't gain really any traction on PSA. And the fact that they didn't look into doing things like this, or they haven't already tried to do things like this, is pretty alarming. It also goes to, their price reductions, and the fact they kept their price point up so high was a bit ridiculous to me as well. Things are going to start going back to almost BAU within the hobby, right? You're starting to see that now. Prices are still declining. We're going to start seeing, backlogs disappear at some of these graders. Things are going to go back to how it was, albeit there's going to be a lot more people. So the fact that SGC could essentially end up in the same spot they did before the pandemic is just really alarming, in my opinion. It just, again, shows how such a large company like CGC, right, from a comic book perspective and what they do, for coin grading, they mean business. And something like this, again, is a slap in the face to SGC and saying, guys, wake up, what the heck are you doing? You're meant to be the hobby's, best friend, in the sense that you're meant to be the one that sticks up for us and all that sort of stuff. You guys get what I'm trying to say, that mindset they sort of take. They're the grader for the collectors is what I'm trying to say. Yet they haven't acted upon trying to action things like this. They haven't tried to innovate much more than their peers, which is, pretty laughable, in my opinion. Again, that's it for that rant. Now, the thing I want to close with today is this hobby beef that I thought was pretty interesting. You've probably all seen this again by now, but this is between, Chad Blaise, C. Blaise, and Tyler from Santiago Sports. A bit of argy-bargy out at the Culture Collision, I think is what the card show was. They played a basketball game between the influencers, and things got a little bit heated here. As you can see, Chad Blaise digs the elbow in a little bit. Tyler loses his cool. He's obviously got a short temper, small man syndrome, perhaps. And I'm just having some banter there. Don't get offended, Tyler. But it's a pretty interesting situation. And obviously, when I saw this, I was like, oh, that's pretty funny. Just boys will be boys. Like, we have a saying here in Australia, right? When you're playing sport, you sort of, have a go at someone on the field, whether it's rugby, AFL, soccer, anything like that. Second you walk off that pitch, you sort of forget about it, right? You leave everything out on the pitch. You go have a cold one, go have a beer with the guy after the game and sort of laugh about it and move on. So when I saw this, I thought it was pretty interesting. As you can see here, I sort of said, just go share a beer and leave it on the court. And then I started to see Blaise talk about it. And the reason why I want to flag this, because it's pretty funny. Blaise looked like he was playing a heel from a wrestling event, right? He's basically playing the bad guy, trying to organize something off the back and keep the banter going, basically do it for the social media metrics. Based on all the responses that, Tyler Santiago Sports was giving, he seemed to be, quite angry about the situation. He didn't seem to be joking, didn't want to partake in it. He sort of outed Blaise, who came up to him after the game apparently and said, you know what, let's keep this going for social media. So the fact that he outed that tells me he's actually quite angry. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because, this mini event of just guys playing sport and having a bit of fun, Tyler has since come out and basically put a challenge to Blaise and said, okay, let's bust open a case of NFL Flawless each. We'll sell the spots for $185 each. We'll donate all the money to charity. And then whoever loses in terms of that case battle, i.e. the one that doesn't get as good cards, has to donate another $1,000 to a specific charity. Which is a really, really good thing, right? And that's sort of what I said to Blaise when this news first broke. I'm like, mate, just play the character, get the heel stuff going, try and organize like a charity event, boxing match, something along those lines. Just have a bit of fun, right? Because it looked like it was just bantered to me. Again, Tyler didn't look like he did that. So it's good to see them come out and maybe try and get something going for charity, right? Just have a bit of fun and make something positive happen out of the hobby. The reason why I'm talking about this today is because I thought it was pretty funny just what Tyler said in the video. Now, I won't play the challenge video for you now, but he talks about how when he do the challenge, puts the challenge to Blaise, and then he says, let's settle this like men. And I'm like, mate, opening a case of cards is not how men settle their beef. I just thought it was pretty funny that he ended with that, because I'm just like, how old are you? Are you a child? Like, how do men settle beef by opening cards? Now, I don't want to begrudge him because they are doing a good thing for charity. Blaise hasn't accepted it yet, but I just thought it was freaking hilarious, right? If you want to sell it like men, you should have left it out on the court. All right, just have a bit of fun. There's nothing wrong with throwing some elbows here and there or pushing each other around. Like, you get one, you give it back, so on and so forth. That's the Aussie mentality. Tie to a vase if you watched UFC. We'll explain how we do it down here in Western Sydney. It's how it works. So I thought it was pretty funny, but mate, that's not how you sell it like men. If you wanted to sell it like men, go have, a bit of fisticuffs, after the game, and then, like I said, go share a beer and have some fun. But again, the positive is they're doing this for charity. So please let me know your thoughts on this beef if you thought it was pretty funny. It's hard for me to explain, right? Because I don't know what your culture is like in America, but typically Australians are, pretty rough. Like I touched on, we play sport pretty hard. We go and fight basically above our weight in the sense that we like being the underdog. Watch, Alexander Volkanovski in, the UFC. Again, his mentality to fighting is sort of how we approach, sport in general. We do things like this all the time look at Dellavedova in the NBA. I know a lot of people took grievance to his approach to playing basketball, but we are, the ultimate competitors, and what people from other countries need to understand. And, our friends in the UK know this pretty well because we have a pretty big rivalry. Same with those guys in New Zealand and Canada. But you guys in maybe other parts of Europe and obviously in America need to understand that we don't take this stuff to heart, right? We don't take this stuff seriously. So when you see some aggression on the court, it's just us being competitive, right? The second we walk off that court, the second we stop playing that match or anything in life, we move on and forget about it. It's just a bit of fun. It's for the entertainment. It's part of sport. It is what it is. The same goes to, like I've said, all the time on this channel. When I call people out, I don't hate them unless you're an out and out, scammer or criminal. I generally can disagree with you, but I'm not going to hate you, right? I'm not going to see you in person and slap you in the face or anything like that. And I've always said, if there's anybody out there that I've, offended in a video or talked about that you're upset about, yeah, we can have a conversation, and then I'll happily buy you a beer, right? There's nothing personal in this for me. It is just business, as Conor McGregor would say when he was getting his face punched in by Khabib. So it is pretty interesting. But again, please share your thoughts on the things today. Apologies for that mini tangent at the end. I just thought I needed to clarify a few things. Again, pretty cool thing for charity. Some interesting news from Fanatics and COMC. Share your thoughts on those as well. And I will see you in the next one. Cheers.